On the shore I stand alone, ocean's whisper calls my name. Depth and longing in my soul, seeking more than just this game. Waves crash softly at my feet, echoes in my heart so deep. Eyes on horizon far and true, longing for a love so steep. Deep calls to deep inside of me, where the sky meets endless sea. Heartbeats blend with ocean's roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. Echoes in my heart so deep, eyes on horizon far and true, longing for a love so steep. Deep calls to deep inside of me, where the sky meets endless sea. Heartbeats blend with ocean's roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. Shells and sand beneath my toes, tides reveal what ebb and flows. In the quiet still I hear whisper longings crystal clear. Deep calls to deep inside of me, where the sky meets endless sea. Heartbeats blend with ocean's roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. Desire, burning with the holy fire. Depth of love beyond all dreams, in the vastness it redeems. Deep calls to deep inside of me, where the sky meets endless sea. Heartbeats blend with ocean's roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. From Genesis to Kings.
I don't want to do that again. Okay. Hey, everybody. Wow, people showed up. Thank you so much. Syrup, I'm so glad to see you. And Irate Specialist, I'm so glad to see you too. There we go. It's a little confusing watching the delay on the thing over here. So I'm going to close that window because it's a little distracting having two things going at the same time. So thank you for the couple of you that showed up. And so since we're doing friend appreciation, Nick, have fun at the game. I know it took a while, but I am so grateful for Mr. Nick Quint there, and a lot of what I have been able to do is because of Nick. And yes, I know you're chilling at Angel Stadium, and all right. Yes, does the Old Testament hate women, or does it despise their very existence? Well, actually, no, the Old Testament does not hate women, and it doesn't hate their existence either. So I'm going to do a whole video on that, or a video or two. And I'm going to talk about how women have value in the Old Testament. We don't even need the New Testament to prove that women are valuable. So we can do that right in the beginning with Torah. So, but yeah, again, thanks for everybody who showed up. Yeah, I got Irate is here. So it was good to see you. Hey, Irate. And I'm new at this thing. So Sirap is here. I've met Sirap, I think, through Faith Unaltered. I can't remember. Or Jamie Russell's channel. But that's kind of, it's been fun to get to see a collection of everybody. Irate is he is the editor over at Floral Under a Rock channel. And so it's good to see Irate. And yeah, so I kind of wanted to just jump in and just test out live streaming because I've never done it before on my own. I've worked with other people doing that. And Roddy's here, and I'm very happy to see Roddy. And Mod Extraordinaire. And oh, yep, Syrup. It is through Jamie's channel. I can't remember. I've met so many new people in the last month that I forget where everybody's from. So that's correct, through Jamie's channel. Thanks, Irate, for remembering to remind people to hit the button. But I just wanted to, I thought it would be fun for my first live stream to just kind of take a minute to express my appreciation for a lot of my friends and people who have helped me get into this crazy adventure in the first place, and then kind of talk a little bit more of some more. Yes, we definitely need to have an Avengers Assemble on the topic of the value of women, because it is something I think that's definitely under-acknowledged, underappreciated. And talking about women in ministry also needs to be a continuing, ongoing conversation that needs to be had. So, because we can't start with the assumption that either equal is equal or it's not. Equal in value, lesser in role sounds a lot like Roddy. Equal in value, lesser in role sounds a lot to me like something that we saw that was the mantra of a certain Southern set of laws, equal but separate but equal. But I'm just going to leave that controversial one there so that Nick can be on stream with me when we talk about that. Sorry, my apologies. But I wanted to okay, so Captain America, theological nationalism. If you could show me in the Old Testament where that works, then I would go for it. But since I don't think it's in the Old Testament, it doesn't. It needs to be proven in the Old Testament. So go ahead, Mr. Nick Quint, take your best shot. How does the Old Testament help us better understand Jesus? This is a really big question that is going to take a very long time to answer. My short answer is that it is starting from Genesis 3, I think, is the first real place we start to see the seeds of the Bible. Lays out this beautiful picture of someone who's coming to restore us back to the place that we lost in Genesis 3 in the fall. And so you have this just woven throughout all of every book. I would say there are hints, there are clues, there are poetry about this someone who's coming, this Messiah, this one that God is sending to restore his relationship with his people. And so by the time we get to the New Testament, we have this picture of this impossible, amazing Savior, and the gospel writers do such a beautiful job of tying the incarnation of Christ to a lot of those Old Testament pictures. So it is a beautiful journey if we let the story unfold the way it's told in the Bible. Not sure. I'm not sure I understand what that is there, Irate. So I'm gonna. Okay. On a scale, Genesis 6, 1 through 4, on a scale of meh to absolutely 100%, how right is Michael Heiser? I was actually just looking at that the other day, and I was messaging with Roddy about this. Genesis 1 through 4 actually really is fascinating because that's where the Nephilim are introduced in Genesis 1 through 6. 6, 1 through 4. Sorry. I'm a little nervous. Let me open my not all of us have the entire Bible memorized like Reverend Nick over there. So some of us have to look things up. And by the way, Nick, I am still waiting for my copy of the Nick Quint translation of the New Testament. When is that coming? Because I would like to have one. Oh wait, Genesis 1. Yeah, so that's right. That's the introduction of the Nephilim. So it's really interesting that you've got Genesis 6. I don't know. Let me see if I can try to put this up so you guys can see this. And then you can follow along with me because this is kind of fun. I think Michael Heiser is right. I think I'd have to go back and look at his Nephilim content, but I think that I would guess, just from going from memory after having listened to it or read it for quite a while. It's been a couple years since I read that part of Heiser's work. I think I would go with a 9 out of 10 on that, but only because I can't remember it in detail enough to be specifically more clear on that. And yes, the divine council stuff. I love the divine council. I love that whole idea. And I think it's really interesting that what Heiser's work was doing and is talking about the divine council. And for people who aren't familiar with it, it can get a little confusing trying to understand what he's talking about. And so when I was taking a Tolkien class, couple, I don't know, it was a couple years ago, I took a free online Tolkien class just because I'm also a huge Tolkien nerd. I thought that it was just really kind of striking and interesting that what he does there with the structure of the his structure of the, not exactly pantheon, because what Tolkien does with, you've got the main deity, and then you've got the under council, and then he's got like layers. And it struck me there was a lot of echoes there of layers of the deity, and that kind of, for me, is a good way of yes, Nick, skating on thin ice. So but I love it. I'm glad that you're here, and I really appreciate it. So, but yeah, I think that Tolkien's presentation of how his divine structure works and all of that is I think maybe a useful analogy there. So, but I haven't dug in and done a lot of work on the comparisons on that. Maybe that would be fun. Yeah, it's less Greek. Pantheon is, I have to use the words I have, Nick. So if you think you can do better, you have a link, hop in here and fix it. So, you gotta put up or be quiet there, sir. Okay. Anyway. So, but yeah, since this is also time to appreciate my friends, I want to, well, first of all, I want to really thank Nick Quint. Nick has become a very good friend. He has been a good YouTube space, like coping with YouTube space mentor. He is a has been also a good um, like seminary graduate work, brutalities of academia, friend and support, and I have really appreciated all of Nick's wisdom and feedback and venting, and I just absolutely adore Nick, and I can't wait until ETS and Nick and I get to go grab some dinner and just get to hang out and have a good time, and running around collecting a whole bunch of papers so that we can later sit around and read through them all and sit around and talk about how everybody's wrong, because that is just a lot of fun. But I would not be doing this without Nick's encouragement and his mentoring. So Nick, you are fantastic. I am so glad to have made friends with you, and it's been fantastic. I absolutely love it. And so thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I invited some of the other guys to show up. We'll see if any of them make it. I don't think so, but I sent it out there. So Nick, you are Kyle. Hi, hey, it's Kyle. Oh yay. Kyle's another one of my favorite people that I get to see in several of the live chat rooms. I don't think I've managed to have to kick him out of anywhere yet with any of my wrenches, but I absolutely adore Kyle. Kyle, you are a lot of fun. You're one of my favorite friends to talk to in the chats. So, and I also want to just kind of say a thank you to, let's go back and kind of pull him, where'd his name go? And to say a thank you to Irate, because Irate Specialist has helped me like figure out some of the how to find software for editing, answering questions, and also been giving me some encouragement as I trying to figure out all this YouTube stuff. So thank you, Irate, for that. I really appreciate it. It's just good to have friends who will just take a time to share a little bit of their knowledge and know-how with you. So and then I know I'm probably going to get a grumpy text for this later, but I definitely want to appreciate. I mean, Roddy is if you guys haven't gotten a chance to talk with Roddy and get to know him a little bit, this is one really fantastic dude, and he knows a lot about the Bible. He is a huge Dr. Michael Heiser fan, but Roddy keeps me on my toes, and he is quick at pointing out things when 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 I'm wrong on something, or oh, good grief. I never expected to get to 20. So the fact that I'm at like, I don't know, I'm close to 90 is absolutely amazing. And this guy right here, okay. This is one of my favorite Fortnite friends that I play Fortnite with, and we all call him Dirt. His Fortnite handle is Dirt Sprinter, and so, but everybody calls him Dirt, and we all adore Dirt. We're so happy that you stopped by, because we have definitely missed you the last week. Everybody's been asking, "Where's Dirt?" They asked in the Fortnite Friday, I guess. Somebody said they asked where Dirt was, and we've got a bunch of projects. So Dirt and I and a couple other friends will like to go into the Legoland parts and blow things up and fly things. And so we have a few projects waiting for Dirt to fly some stuff and blow some up and blow up some flying things, and it is going to be a lot of fun. So, but thanks for stopping by. Thanks for stopping by, Dirt. We've missed you, and it's just, I'm really happy to see you stop by. Yeah, everybody loves Dirt. Everybody loves Dirt. He's a good dude. So back to this, like I never thought I'd get to 20 subscribers. I thought this is just started as a thing that I was doing for some ladies at a Bible study that I was in, to make some videos for background information as we were going through the book of John. And there was a whole bunch of Old Testament context that they had never been exposed to, things that they didn't know. And they were wanting to learn about theology, but they didn't know what any of the ologies were. And so when I started talking about, Jamie, you have a link. Get yourself up here and get yourself in the stream. You, sir, need to show up. I sent you a link on your on Facebook. So get in your Facebook messages and get the link out and get in here, because yeah, you need to come on. So and that just got me distracted. So I started this to just do content for the Bible study ladies that I was doing, and ended up doing some collaborating and some stuff with Church Under a Rock, and ran into there's Jamie.
Hey,
I go,
I
oh,
see you.
I think I accidentally muted you there. So that's right. A wizard is never late. And we love Jamie. Everybody should love Jamie. Let me just say that. So Jamie, I just wanted to take a minute and just say, like, how much I have, did I mute you or did you mute you? Okay. You're not mute. Okay. I didn't do that. Okay. That Jamie has been one of the fun surprise friends that I have made in getting into doing YouTube. So, Jamie is Seventh-day Adventist, and I'm not. And I think we started having conversations over Moses and the burning bush, and I contacted you about something in the Hebrew there. And if I remember correctly, it was the first time I think I had an interaction with you. And just since then, I have really come to love and appreciate Jamie. He is fantastic and passionate, and really cares about Christ. He cares about people, and he cares about God's word. So, Jamie, it has just been fantastic getting to know you, and I'm just so grateful that God has crossed our paths. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I was admiring you from afar on Warren's channel when you was a mod, but I just found myself liking your sort of just the kind of stuff you were saying, and you know, yeah, I appreciate just your attitude and heart for people, and it stands out to me. And I like surrounding myself with people like that, because that's things I need to grow on, because like I need that sort of influence. And so anyway, yeah. And I like your interest in the Bible too, because I'm down with that.
See, you've got a fan here. Nick is also a fan. Nick's a good dude. He has a very.
I've been starting to look at his stuff too. I like a lot of stuff that him and Will and talk about that. I didn't notice at first, but yeah, I like people that are honest with the text and don't aren't afraid to go wherever it leads, even if they don't end up agreeing with me, which I prefer.
which is a lot of us, but that's okay. And Nick is Wesleyan in tradition too, so I think you guys might have some ground that is also common there.
Yeah, for sure. I realize. Oh yeah, I get along with, but I actually have. Yeah. I love the Odyssey of Love is I thought was pretty awesome. I think it's right. So I think it's a good idea. It's humbly put, like.
Well, that's the thing I think that I have enjoyed being able to do, because I don't like one of the things I did in that response video that I did to you, that I absolutely had so much fun making that was a joy to do. And I think my favorite comment ever on the internet was by Roddy, actually. And he commented on that video about like this is the something about like this is the worst response video ever. Where's the criticism? Where's the too much love and charity, too much agreeing to disagree, too much brotherhood. Like it was funny. So best comment I've ever seen on the internet. And but that's very much what I try to want to be my approach to everybody is to see where we agree first. And because that all right, bye Nick. Baseball time. Go have fun with Nugs. Have a good game, and we will talk. So thanks for coming, Nick. Thanks for your support. Lots of love. We'll talk soon. Sorry. So yeah, that I think that, and I learned this from my grandfather actually, that people agree more than they disagree, and so before we can actually disagree, we need to stop and figure out where we agree, and then we have a good place to work from. If we're just working from where we disagree, we get into cycles of just anger and no one's listening. You just end up shouting at each other and nobody's actually listening to anything anybody ever is saying. So I try to start from finding where do we agree. Let's find the positive. Let's find, our common ground. And then from our common ground, we can look at where the differences might be.
Yeah, because I struggle with that because of like I have strong convictions about what the Bible teaches, and but like when I interact with other people who are reasonable or whatever, it kind of keeps me on track. But I do struggle with that and trying to try to be balanced, and like you need to be involved with people that are like-minded. But I noticed something when my desire, which I haven't been doing very well lately, it's been kind of a tough year or whatever, but the idea I think that I want to get away from is that I used to see even worse in myself, and I see it in other people, and I really have the desire to try to have more charitable interactions like what you were just describing, rather than is what tends to happen in more, I don't know if you'd say it depends on how you define fundamentalist, but I want to like say I kind of identify with those people, like taking the Bible seriously in that way. But I think there's this mindset of thinking people who don't agree with you are like almost like conspiracy. Like, I mean, I'm not just talking about people accusing me of this. I'm just saying like in general, people tend to want to assign motives that aren't necessarily the purpose of the person. And I want to just like avoid that, but be realistic about it, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But I like what Syrup has to say. And I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, because I'm terrible at pronouncing things. So, but disagree and love, that's what counts. And I think absolutely, I think sometimes, well, JB and I haven't had any big clashes on anything yet. I'm sure there's some that are probably coming because we haven't gotten into eschatology too deeply yet. And I think he's going to not like some of the things I have to say about the Sabbath, although we are going to agree more than we disagree on the Sabbath. But there's some things that I don't think JB's going to like very much. So, there's some things we are gonna I think disagree on. But I also think that there's enough mutual respect there and enough positive relationship that hopefully we'll be able to walk away from that, both of us, better for having had those conversations and being willing to at least hear the other person out and be generous that way. So
you're gonna have a hard time getting me to be mad or upset at this point. So don't be too worried. But I mean, we'll disagree probably. But but it's hard being an Adventist, because if you actually believe the kind of the things that make someone an Adventist, then it's it's easy to slip into like wanting to think people, I like to jokingly say like, I just believe the Bible sort of thing. People say that it's like, I get it. And I'm not saying the Bible can't be understood. I think it can be, but like everybody is going to have a certain sort of way of coming at it from just the way they've understood it. So you have to struggle with that and realize people aren't just denying everything necessarily, right? So, and
Right.
it's hard to know what to do with that.
So I'm curious because Roddy made this kind. I've seen it on your. I lost my mouse pointer again. I am so technologically terrible. It's amazing. I can do anything. I can do any of this. It's crazy.
Oh, you got your thing in the background. I just noticed.
I did, yes. So I want to do this first, and then I'll talk about some of these other bits because I want to do some other appreciating some other friends, and you can help me with that because they're all people that you know. But as Roddy said, that I've seen on your tag a lot when you're on like streaming and stuff. Saved based workstationist. So Jamie, talk about that just a little bit. What do you mean when you say saved based workstationist?
Well, when there's a theme, I think that's carried along, and it's called like the Exodus theme or whatever, right? And it's pointed out that God took them out of Egypt from their oppressors and then gave them the law. So that I'm kind of going off that idea, and then I'm also kind of jabbing at those who disagree with me about soteriology and whatnot. I think it's a nuanced issue about if you can lose your salvation. I think it's something that's to be carefully. But I want to say, okay, we admitted that we're sinners and we've come to Jesus. Now let's go on to the next thing, right? Like that's the call. So I'm kind of like saying, like, look, if you want to. I just want to talk about what God desires for us, not just about, what it means to have been justified. And so I'm just kind of saying, like, let's be saved-based worksationists, because people will call you, they'll say I'm backloading works or I'm works-based salvation. And I'm just going like, no, I don't think so. It's more like this.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, I really like that. And I might actually steal that sometime. I'll give you credit in the footnotes, which I guess isn't stealing, but I might just actually use that because I really do find it an intriguing way. It makes me really, every time I see it, it makes me stop and think like, that's really, really interesting way to phrase that. So, but yeah, the background here, and let me do this. So I have let's see, where'd they go? I was playing with this. So this is where I want to do like another appreciation thing real quick here. So the guys over at Faith Unaltered, so Josh Davidson actually spent, I don't know, probably an hour just on StreamYard with me, showing me how to do all kinds of cool stuff. So I had a bunch of these AI generated things that I've made for different, videos for Old Testament and whatnot. And so he was showing me how. So I've been playing with like this, and this is one of my favorites. This is my ideal library. If I could have my own cave,
awesome.
temple, Jewish themed scroll library thing, that would be it. And I was playing with Genesis 1:1, and this one here. I'm gonna see if I can.
Cool.
No, well, it doesn't let me do that. So I don't know, but. Anyway, so it's kind of fun playing with these things. And then he sent me this one to use because it kind of fits with my Old Testament type theme. Although those are more Greek columns than Hebrew columns. But yeah, Joshua Davidson spent a good hour, and Tyler Fowler, and one of the other guys over at Faith Unaltered came on my channel, and I did an interview with him about his conversion to Greek Orthodoxy. And that was really, really interesting. And I can't say that I agree with everything in Orthodoxy, but I definitely found a lot of things. He and I found a lot of things that we either agree on or that that resonated enough that I learned to appreciate his journey into Orthodoxy. And Faith Unaltered and Tyler and Josh have been really big in plugging and platforming my channel. And hey, here's another one of my friends. So you guys get to meet some more of my friends. So hey, this is my friend Punk Waddle. He's got his own channel, and he stopped by. He waddled over to say hello on his way to something else. So how you doing, Punk?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks.
We've been having fun talking about all of our favorite friends, and Nick was asking hard Bible questions for a while, but he had to go watch baseball, so it's all good.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a little late because I was spending time with Sugar Waddle and we were watching some football. So
Well, I hear they do that down where you are in that part of the world. So
yeah, I mean, well, yeah. If you've heard any of my ponderances, which I know most of you guys don't know, I kind of joke that because I'm a Penguin, I tried team sports, but I got mistreated as the ball, so I don't really do that anymore. But if Sugar Waddle likes it, that's my wife, by the way. So we try to spend time enjoying each other, even if sports aren't my favorite thing.
That's the fun part, and it's important. So yeah, so Punk, this is my friend Jamie. He's got another channel that it's really interesting stuff actually. But Jamie can talk about himself a little bit. He's good at that. But we're just kind of talking about Faith Unaltered right now, and Faith Unaltered is a channel that has really been plugging my stuff. Yeah, Dirt's here.
Hey, Dirt. Hey, right.
I love Faith Unaltered. I've been watching them before they really even just been a spectator and loving to comment on their content and engaging with them without it being polemical or confrontational, even though we have disagreements. But I have a lot of agreements with orthodoxy in a lot of ways compared to other Protestants, even though I identify as a Protestant. So it's and I just like them, and I like their interest in it and the way they engage. And I've had I would like to ask Tyler to talk. I want to have a talk with Tyler too. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but with Josh and just everybody, I enjoy their conversation and the different subjects they talk about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would. Actually, you guys have a lot in common, so that would be a really interesting conversation to have. Having heard some of his story, and when we finished up with the conversation that we had about his conversion, and he talked a little bit about some more of his journey behind the scenes, like you kind of do after streams, and it's fascinating. So yeah, Jamie, you and Tyler would have a lot to talk about, I think, and that would be really interesting to see you two get together and have a conversation about that. So, but yeah,
it's funny. I was in a punk band, and I used to have that exact haircut as the Penguin, in my 20s, and I was a drummer, and I have CDs and everything. So,
so that piques my interest because I'm a bass player, and so I grew up. I'll date myself. I grew up in the 90s, so some of the Green Day stuff that was popular, but I didn't really. But some of the post grunge, the punk, the rock, the ska, really, I loved all that stuff. And being a bass player, when you had, some of these 3-piece bands, the bass was pretty much the lead guitar and rhythm, and you had if Rancid's Maxwell Murderers, Out Come the Wolves album. There's so much stuff that's
one of my first albums.
Those bass lines, like that took me to a whole nother level. That bass isn't just this root. It is, I don't know, the seed, the root, all the different branches. If you know how to play with it in things like Victor Wooten, Flea, and so all those things. But being a bass player, needing a good drummer was the hardest thing. My best friend growing up, who was funny enough a pastor's kid, he has spina bifida. And so at 12 years old, they said he'd be wheelchair bound, but he learned how to play jazz drums and he used thunder sticks. And yeah, he had a few issues with the hi-hat, because of the feet issues. But he could keep better time and rhythm. Like we listened to stuff like, I'm not ashamed to say I liked Incubus back in the 90s, but all that syncopation and all that rhythm, it's so hard to find people who can, go there with you.
Yeah, I'm not I'm as musically inclined as I am technology inclined, so that's not that's not my. I like listening to music, but I didn't. I tried the clarinet once, and my dad paid me to stop, so
Wow.
it was pretty bad.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
I will say that I modeled the hair kind of after the SLC Punk kind of Matthew Lillard absurd mohawk.
Oh, that movie I loved that movie when I was in high school.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, it's funny. I'll send you my some of the old songs or whatever.
Nice. Yeah. I know I'm a little bit of a fish out of the water because I know you guys are into more of the theology channels and I've been more of the entertainment. And I don't know if you guys know, but I'm also an active puppet on YouTube too. So I kind of jump around in a few different realms, but thank you, Amber, for letting me be here. And one of the things I will say I appreciate about Amber is, and I did actually watch some of the conversations you had with you, Jamie, but just like you were saying, just talking to people and giving them the chance to have a conversation that's not gotcha moments, that's not trying to rile people up, just to say, you're a friend and I want to hear things and give you a chance to speak. And it's so important, whether it's entertainment, whether it's faith, whether it's all the different realms where we can disagree and just try to find points to disagree. It's a breath of fresh air to find that commonality across, passions and all that such, and places to see where these minds kind of meet.
Yeah. Well, it's fun for me too. And one of the reasons why I asked Punk to stop by, not just because he's a good friend of mine, and we also play Fortnite together, which is a lot of fun, and we have a good time doing that. And we play with Dirt a lot. We talked about that before you got here, Punk, about Dirt being here and the projects and things we have waiting, the things to fly and the things to explode that are waiting for us here. And we play with Irate sometimes too. We haven't seen him as much since he got a new job, and he just, he's too busy to play with the rest of us. But and I've also had, even outside of that, I've been enjoying watching Punk Waddle's stuff that he's been putting out, a lot more content on his channel now. And I would encourage everybody, because it's just really fun, positive content. And it's something that, everybody can watch. And I would recommend it to everybody, because it's just nice, and I appreciate just having things that are nice and positive, and I don't have to be on guard to see if something's going to be abrasive, or if somebody's going to be a troll, or if somebody's going to say something offensive or rude. And so I really just love the fact that Punk is really stepping into that positive space, because it really is a thing that everybody, we need more positivity, especially on YouTube, for sure.
I concur.
So
Yeah, I think sometimes I like worry if I say something, like, for instance, I'll just give you what I was thinking of. Like, you told me you were non-denominational. I was thinking about that, and I made the kind of a snarky thing about it. And I hope you didn't think if you saw it, that I was directing it at you, because I was like, someone made a video from a channel that just documents like the different denominational differences from like a neutral point of view, and he was talking about, because some people, and not you, but people have come at me and been like I'm not part of a denomination. Sometimes I'm like, that has its advantages and disadvantages, but to find yourself to not identify within a denomination, I think is fine and perfectly normal and good. But some people, like, it's like their church is called a non-denominational, but they really have kind of history behind that, right? And so it's like, what are you trying to say exactly? I'm not sure. Like, if you're a church identifying as non-denominational, what do you think? Like, what are they trying to say by that? I guess I'm not sure.
I completely understand what you're saying, because I grew up in Texas, which may not be obvious by the sheriff star on the thing, but no, but being Bible Belt adjacent, and like I grew up in Houston, bigger city in Texas, so we didn't have quite the things, but we did have a lot of Baptist churches. But I've also kind of, since those formative years, I've spent times in smaller towns in Texas, and kind of with jobs and traveling, spent time in East Texas, West Texas, and you kind of, the church I grew up with was a Bible church, non-denominational church, which is very, in our area, that church leaned a lot heavily towards closer to Baptist than anything else, but without the like, you have to have baptism for salvation. You like they kind of leaned away from the major quantifiers, but there were a lot of commonalities because I did go visit some Baptist churches in the area also when I was a kid, and it wasn't like a shade far from where I already was.
Yeah, I find myself identifying with the notion of not wanting to like be part of something you don't want to be a part of, but then at the same time, it's like, is what I'm asking is like, what are your doctrinal particulars, so I can just like understand how to relate to you or whatever.
Yeah,
that's what's. It's in me. I can find myself agreeing with the notion and also being frustrated by it.
Yeah,
right. I think that what they're talking about is that labels, by their very nature, give us a way to identify things about somebody else ahead of time, so maybe we know how to step into a conversation. So if I know Jamie's Seventh-day Adventist, I know kind of basically where we agree and where we disagree. So it kind of gives me a base assumption of some things about you. So like I know that Punk is a YouTube content creator, so that comes with its own set of definitions. And if I identify with certain, soteriological alignment, that's going to tell me a lot about what you think, what you believe. So being denominational puts you under a definitional umbrella, and in a church structure, an ecclesiastical structure, that also helps me understand the way that you view the world and the church and the way the world interacts with the church. But and that can also be helpful from the point of needing, and where non-denominational can be a problem, when there's no structure, no formal structure. It's harder to deal with problematic, like pastors who need to be removed, or funding and supporting schooling and education. And there are ups and downs. So but the downside is you get stuck in certain niches, and it's hard to, when you get out of your rut, to go over to somebody else's rut and have conversations with them. But non-denominationalism is its own form of rut as well. So it all is its own thing. But it's really, labels are not really anything more than identifiers to help us define other people before we have a chance to really get to know them, to give us a starting point of reference for who we think that they are, who they might be. And oh, look, we got another one coming on. Yay. Okay. Hey, it's Mind Trap. How you doing, sir? I'm so happy. I didn't think you were going to make it. Get your microphone working there? Are you muted? Did I mute you? I think I might have muted you. Oh yeah, because you come in. Maybe. Hang on. I don't know what I did. Oh, okay. Now you're unmuted on my end. Okay. So I think you're muted on your end now. Well, get it. Get it?
I think I got it.
Awesome.
There you go.
Is that me? Yeah.
There you go.
All
right.
I'm off and on. I'm watching.
Yeah. Well, this is Mind Trap, and he is one of my absolute favorite live chat participants. And he, yep, Roddy is pointing out, late as usual. Roddy and I just adore Mind Trap. Anybody who runs in the circles of David Glenn. Oh, David, thank you so much for coming by. That means a lot. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. But yeah, Mindtrap runs in a lot of the same live chat circles that Roddy and I do. And so we run into him a lot, and it's been fun. James is really brilliant. He challenges me all the time, and especially with his like his snarking and his sarcastic comments, and the dark sarcasm. I really love it because it takes a very much a higher level of thinking and understanding to actually appropriately use dark sarcasm, and Mindtrap is just the master at that. And so I just love it when I get to go back and forth with him and have some really great conversations. And hopefully we can work out. So he's going to come on here and do another couple live streams with me talking about different things, just because I love his perspective. So thanks, Mindtrap, for stopping by. I know you had a long day and you're tired, but I appreciate you coming on. I'll see if he's got his sound working. There you go.
Happy late birthday, by the way.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is a belated birthday party, and just a way for me to get to appreciate all of my friends, because you get to a certain a point in a journey where I have gotten so much blessing from so many people, and everybody who's here has contributed to it. All of you have in different ways. And like I want to mention David Glenn, because David has taught me a lot about being a good mod. A lot of why I'm such a good mod is because of David Glenn, and he gave me a lot of pointers. He gave me a lot of tips and modeled some of what makes a moderator a good moderator. And a lot of that I learned from David. So thank you, David, for that. I really appreciate that. That was, I will always kind of consider you my mentor in moderating and how to do that well. Oh no, not so much. No, David is the master at making people feel welcome. He greets everyone. He knows everyone who's a regular in his chat space. He contributes to the conversation. And hey, Popular Mechanic, thanks for stopping by. Welcome. It's good to have you. And so, I've really appreciated David. And so thank you, sir. There are several mods who I helped train over at Faith Unaltered, who have been also the continuing benefactor or beneficiaries of your wisdom and your learning how to be a good mod and teaching me how to be a good mod, because I taught them everything you taught me. So I'm really I'm so glad that David stopped by. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, this whole journey, and getting to going to school was really scary for me, and stepping into doing this. Hey, Josh, I sent you a link. Jump in. We got plenty of space here. If you can, definitely jump in, because that would be fun as well. But yeah, going to school has been doing scary things. Learning how to play Fortnite was completely scary, and it was fun, and I learned how to do that. And now doing this has been a series of one scary thing after another, and I have met the most amazing people. And so I thought, well, for my birthday, what I want to do is just thank everybody for being part of the journey that's been so crazy the last few years. Okay, that is acceptable, Josh. You're allowed. You're allowed. You have an amazing. Your wife looks amazing. So yeah, wives come first.
Lucky devil. I want a wife. Come on. But do you what are you gonna do? Like, what's your goal on your channel? Like, what are you hoping to kind of put out there over the next season, the next school year here?
Mm-hmm. So, well, one of the things I really want to do is continue having conversations with people that are from different traditions, and creating a space where we learn how to start from agreeing and then talk about our differences. So I really want to, like, Jamie, I want you to come on. We're going to talk about Seventh-day Adventism tomorrow. And I'm talking to a couple of other people. Like I'm talking to somebody who's Catholic about coming in and talking to their conversion to Catholicism. And I want to start also opening up the space a little bit and to have discussions with where faith overlaps in things like entertainment and music. And so I want to have like Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment on, and Punk doesn't know it yet, but he's going to come on and talk about Christian, about exploring the entertainment space and how that works. And I'm going to talk to him about that. But Roddy, yes, Roddy knows me well. He knows me well. That's for sure. I enjoy hanging out with everybody. I don't care who they are. So yeah, and Mind Trap's going to come on. We're going to talk about some stuff. And I want to create a space where, we just start from agreeing. And then I also want to talk about sharing my love of the Old Testament and why the Old Testament matters, because there's so many things that I think people get wrong in church because the Old Testament is underappreciated or outright ignored. And so there's a whole lot there that is so rich and so important to know that just doesn't even get talked about. And I think that a better understanding of the Old Testament can definitely help our New Testament faith. And actually, Nick Quint and I are going to collaborate. We're going to do an episode on is New Testament and Old Testament theology even a thing? Because it really should just be Bible theology. And by that, I mean like the narrative story as a whole, and stop breaking it apart, because you're breaking apart a beautiful story that shouldn't be broken into pieces. And so we're going to spend a lot of time looking into that.
I think sort of bird's eye view on that.
Kind of, yeah. I like a lot of what Heiser does.
That's what drove that largely. That and other peripheral things about that I resonated with, and I didn't quite hear it like that in my tradition per se. It goes along with my tradition, to be fair, but I would say it's so obviously right.
Yeah, and I'm going to start doing, I think, once a month, a Q&A live stream for Old Testament. People just bring your questions, and we'll just talk about some of the weird stuff. And I want to do a series on the ugliness in the Bible, and we're going to talk about the ugliness there. So, because there is war, there's death, there's some pretty stuff that in our context especially looks pretty horrific. So what do we do with those hard parts? Because they're there for a reason. And so I just want to kind of go through some of those and talk about, God can be honest, so we should too. And that's kind of be where we're going with some of that stuff.
Are you talking about the non-memory verses that we were talking about? Like,
yeah, those things.
Poo-poo on your face or whatever. It's like, what do we do?
Right. The stuff that you are probably not going to hear from the pulpit on a Sunday morning. We're going to talk about some of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I
think you should call it non-memory verses. That'd be awesome. I'll make you
I might do that. So I really want to just create a space where it's a fun place to just learn things and to interact with people and just be, I think I love this, like the same kind of thing that Punk is doing in his corner of the internet, and just making it a positive space, that you don't come to my channel to get into the cage stage fighting in theology that makes all Christians look terrible, that we can have those conversations and do it in a positive way. And so that's really more of what I want to focus on is the positive conversations and taking on tough topics, but doing it in a way that is respectful, and that we don't have to destroy one another because we disagree. So that's kind of what I'm planning for at least the rest of the school year, and then who knows after that. It'll depend on what I have next year. I'll be writing my thesis, so I'll probably do less content next year because the thesis writing is pretty intense. But
what are you going to do it on?
We'll
Do you know
see.
yet?
I'm not sure. It's probably going to be Ezekiel because I have fallen in love with, and that's another one of those really gross sections of the Bible that people skip over. Ezekiel 16 to 24. You don't hear that taught a lot because it's pretty gross and graphic. And but I find there's some of those really ugly parts. There are some really beautiful lessons. Yes, Kyle. Yes, Kyle. That is that section. So that's pretty funny. I have to put that up just because it's Ezekiel and you have to. But there is even in those ugly parts, there is a lot of beauty to be found in those if you learn how to read them and you learn how to understand them and learn how to interact with them. Even the ugly parts teaches us something about God, and God is good and loving, and so and so it really I really just want to share my my love of that, and in my thesis I'm going to be interacting, I think, with the same basic idea. So that's
Do you
kind of
think
what I'm
do you
doing.
take that? Do you take those sorts of things as historical? I mean, or would you say it doesn't really even matter? But what's the purpose of that sort of story? Because it seems like God kind of makes them do
Mhm.
things that are highly like representing what they're doing spiritually and manifesting it. Like when
Mhm.
he makes, like, I forget who is it, Hosea or whatever, marries the prostitute or whatever, and like
Mhm.
so like
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
sort of symbolism. I'm curious if you have any quick thoughts on that.
I think that I would say that I think all of it. Hey, John Graber stopped by. Hosea, like all of those, even Jonah. So, like Jonah is my favorite example talking about this because the book of Jonah, when you read it, it's not the flannel graph storyboard that most of us, who grew up as Christians, learned in Sunday school. Jonah is Monty Python, wicked, sarcastic humor that is meant to be in your face to Israel of how ridiculous they are being because they refuse to repent and return to God. And the idea that Nineveh would repent with the shortest, worst sermon ever, and Israel has been sent prophet after prophet after prophet and refuses to change their mind. The book of Jonah is mocking Israel, but does that mean Jonah wasn't a real person? Absolutely not. I think he definitely was, and I think that was kind of how the story went down. But the way that the author of the book of Jonah writes that story, he uses a just an absolute British level of wicked sarcasm to tell that story. And so, I think it's all based on real people and real events, but the way that they choose to tell the story, they're storytellers, is what they are. We have to, get it into our heads that the Bible is a giant story. It's a true story, but it's a story. So I think there's license just the way that we create our own stories, and when we tell our own stories, they're based on truth, but we emphasize different things for different reasons and move things around in different order for different reasons. And so, but I think we need to back up a little bit and just appreciate it for the literature that it is and the storytelling and the narrative that it is. So that's kind of my take on that.
So,
Awesome.
if anybody asks me what the most British book of the Bible is, it's Jonah.
Yep. Well, yes, as a whole entire book, yes. But there are some other parts in there that you find, because this, I got in trouble the other day for saying this, but God is sassy. He is definitely sassy. So and it's fun when you get into some of the Hebrew and some of that other stuff that God's got a sense of humor. God is not afraid to um, say some wickedly sarcastic things. There's some flat out mockery. So God's got a sense of humor. God definitely is sarcastic and sassy, and it's kind of sad, I think, when we don't allow ourselves to see those sides of God because we miss some of the imagery and some of the intended messages in those books, because if we have to have a view of God that is so formal, then yeah, David Glenn, exactly. God made the platypus. God's got a sense of humor, and so when we take those pieces out, we miss the full picture. We miss, you're looking at a black and white photo instead of the full color 3D image that it really is. So yeah.
My biggest nightmare that I'm likely guilty of all over the place is I don't want to find myself realizing that I've been lying to myself about things like that in the text, right? Like to wake up one day that I've been not allowing myself to see it for what it is or whatever. And so and the only way to prevent that is to try to be open to to receiving stuff like that. And I think it actually adds authenticity to it as well, which is, I think I'm stronger to have faith with God anyway.
Well, and I think too that that we get what we're ready for. So you may not have been ready to see those texts that way 3 years ago, but now you are. And so it's the process of growing, learning, and being open to, hey, Warren's here. Hey, Warren, you have a link, Warren. You can jump in and say hi with the rest of us. I sent you a link. And I think now I just got distracted. I forgot what I was talking about. So we'll just move on to the next thing.
Being ready for seeing the.
Yes. So like the book of Proverbs, when you put the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes together, you're looking at this beautiful picture of growing in wisdom, but also realizing that in the end, it isn't, it's important, but it doesn't matter. So really what you're left with is relationship with God. Relationship with Yahweh is the only thing really that matters. So, but we do have to continue growing in wisdom. And when we step in forward and lean forward into opening ourselves up to learning and growing, so we'll learn things later that we weren't quite ready for at the beginning. And so it's really a mark of maturing and of growing and increasing in faith and wisdom and relationship with God, when you can go back and see something you hadn't seen before. So it's really a good sign. We have to, I think, embrace being wrong, because like I have learned more from being wrong than I ever have from being right. So I have learned to appreciate what I get from being wrong. I don't like being wrong, but I have learned to appreciate what I have gained from being wrong. And that, I think, can help make that process something that is a little less painful. I don't know.
That's amazing. You've been wrong. I was wrong one time. It was so weird. I'm half joking, but half serious, right?
Well, you haven't reached Jonathan Pritchett's level of being wrong yet, Jamie. So you got to work harder. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know, James. I don't know. What about you? I don't think you've been wrong very many times. I haven't seen it anyway.
I wake up wrong every day, and I go to sleep and I try to fix one thing. So.
Yeah. Well. There's your second wrong right there, Warren.
That's like a this sentence is a lie or whatever.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What about you, Punk? What do you think about like the growing and learning and all that stuff?
I mean, I completely concur. It's the idea. Well, first off, I've been wrong a lot. I don't think Sugar Waddle's watching this, but just in case she ever does, yes, I know I make mistakes and I can be quite stubborn, stick in the mud at times. But the learning and growing, it's the being wrong. It's the push and pull, figuring anything out. Like, one of the things that's been on my mind lately is the iron sharpens iron. Like sometimes it's being wrong and needing to actually understand that and need to rectify what happened.
Mm.
But there's also times where it's the learning process, right? So, um, like, Sugar Waddle is my wife, but also I'm still learning things, and we're growing as people. So
Mhm.
just having one thing figured out one day doesn't mean I have it in the bag either. So like I'm
Yep.
changing, I'm growing. Like I turned from, a couple years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, I wasn't really on YouTube at all.
Mhm.
And then I was unemployed, and then I kind of was trying to do something that didn't spend all my money, and try to do something. And somehow I turned into a puppet on YouTube, which she's learned to accept too, right? Um,
Mhm.
but it's like I said, it's a lot of fun
Yeah.
to navigate life, and you find the places as the older you get, you learn kind of what you're made of. You learn what things you're good at, bad at. It's the process of learning yourself, learning your others, and learning the situations that are good for you and bad for you. And mistakes were made all along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, John, I absolutely concur. Punk Waddle is one of my favorite friends that I've made amongst the content creator crew. And one of my favorite Fortnite buddies. So we've had a lot of had a lot of fun blowing things up and talking about things and disagreeing about things. Actually, I think out of everybody here, I think Punk Waddles disagreed with me more than anybody, which
Well,
has been kind of fun.
well, I mean, like I said, I, I, I mean, I grew up in church, but I come from a slightly
Mhm.
different background, and I studied psychology and sociology in school. Um, there's a little bit of obviously a lot of overlap in understanding life and faith and things like that, but just between experiences and focus, there's just the other side of things, which is really fun to you know
Yeah.
find people who are not in your circle that you wouldn't expect to be in your circle.
Yeah, and that's I think one of the fun parts of being open and being curious because I am a little bit of a curious person, and so my curiosity takes me in some really interesting places, and it's been kind of fun as I've been getting more curious about other things that getting to meet so many people that has been um, I've learned a lot from it and try as much as I can to now just continue to stay curious because that is, I think, one of the biggest parts of the adventure of finding joy in life is being curious and making new friends and reaching out and stuff like that. So um, that's just kind of where I try to stay now. It took me a long time to learn that, though. That's for sure. All right. Well, we are over an hour. That went really fast. It really went fast. Oh, well, we can't go now. Come on, Warren. Where'd you go?
He's blinking in and out in the background.
He is. He's blinking in and out in the background. I don't know what happened. Ah, there he goes. There
Sorry,
he is.
sorry about that. I closed the wrong window. I was listening to you on YouTube, and I was
That's
like, "Oh, I'm going on. I better close it." And I shut down
oops.
StreamYard on accident.
Oops.
All right. We're doing friend appreciation, and Warren is here. And so I'm so glad that you stopped by, Warren, because I really wanted to just like kind of just tell everybody, and I haven't had a chance to really get to talk to you and just kind of and just say, like, Warren really is a behind the scenes person who is kind of responsible for a lot of this because of the modding that I do and Warren's channel. I've met a lot of people, and in all that time, got to be somebody who I think has a lot of like respect and credibility amongst a lot of the folks in that space. And because of all that time, because it's been what, over a year, I think I've been modding for Warren,
Oh yeah, thank you.
and
Yeah. Yeah, you've been modding for a
And-
while now.
Yeah, it's been over a year, and because of that, I've also made connections with Nick Quint and a whole bunch of other people.
I'm
And
sorry about that one. You
Um,
know, it hasn't all been good. So yeah, you know, there are exceptions.
I know, but because of Warren and modding on Warren's channel, like all of this is fallout from modding for Warren. And so thank you, Warren, so much. I appreciate. And Warren's you've come on my channel, and I have a couple more things I want to pull you on and have some conversations about, and the support that you've been, and and just encouraging me as I've kind of been stepping into this space. And I've just really appreciated just you as a person and as a friend and as a fellow content creator, and giving me a shot. And
No, thank
having
you.
me-
I've appreciated all your help. I mean, you've helped not just with modding, but you've also helped me with some research, and you push back sometimes and go, I disagree with that interpretation, Warren. I go, oh, let me go look into this. So no, I value your friendship, and appreciate all your hard work for the channel, and you keep the other mods in line. You crack the tough whip and don't let them get too power hungry or out of control. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, especially this guy is Roddy here. He's a troublemaker.
He's almost as bad as Nick Quint. Roddy.
That's right. Absolutely. Roddy's a troublemaker. But yeah, I was actually going to talk to you about that. I might need a higher level of wrench so I can kick Roddy when he's a problem.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you
I'll
should
give you 2 wrenches. I'll give you 2 wrenches.
But you can give them there's I think there's 2 layers, but I wanted to say about Warren that
Come on, Jamie.
year-
You're gonna call me a
year and a
heretic?
half ago-
You're gonna call me a heretic?
no, like 2 years ago. No. 2 years
I'm kidding.
ago,
Kidding.
I'm a lot nicer in person now. Yeah, the like someone I knew was saying they were an open theist, and I was kind of just like on the bandwagon with like, oh, you don't think God knows anything, and I'm like, now I'm looking back, and because I was kind of watching from afar what people were saying about you, and you were one of the first people that actually had as many subscribers as you did, and you responded to my inquiries like when I messaged you for the first time, and a lot of people don't respond like that, and your conduct towards people stuck out to me.
Sorry about that. If you follow me on Twitter, that's not a good thing.
Well, I felt I had to stick up for you because it was so obviously you were being so obviously misrepresented. It was it was egregious, and so yeah, I like your influence on the Christian YouTube community. I'll say it that way.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. That's very kind. I
Yeah.
try.
Warren.
Like I think I'm doing okay, and then I go hang out with Leighton, and I get under conviction, and like that guy is patient and kind and tolerant, and I go for a little while, and then my cup overfloweth, and so I appreciate the kind words and encouragement. I'm trying to be a little more tempered with the way that I engage. I think conversationally it's not an issue, but sometimes when you're dealing with a troll or something, sometimes you get a little fun and push back maybe in ways you shouldn't. I don't know.
So Warren, that guy down there next to you, Punk Waddle, has a YouTube channel, and he does.
I've seen some of his videos.
You've
Yeah,
seen some of his fun. Oh, really? Okay. See, there you go. Yeah, he's.
I mean, you might recognize some of my association.
Yay!
Absolutely.
See the penguin. Oh,
I mean-
that just made my day, Punk. I love it.
I mean, let's just say I was born in the chats as this iteration, and then this cotton version of me might have been born in Canada, but I'm still me. So
I thought I picked up on a Canadian accent, just a little one there. You seemed very nice, and so I was like, well, you're obviously not American or
well,
US.
I mean, there's kindness in the South and Texas. I mean, I'm not of the deep South Southern gentleman sort of over correctiveness of that sort of thing.
You don't call your daughters ma'am and your kids sir.
Well,
I'm trying to break myself of that habit. I was raised in Texas, and
yeah.
I'll go out to work, and there'll be people that are my peers. I'll just say yes sir, no ma'am, and they hate it. They hate it.
I'll tell you this. So I grew up in Houston, so we didn't have as much of that. But as I've spent time in some of the smaller towns and moved away from the big city, you know, when I went to East Texas for a little while, it was you have the handshake and the look straight in the eyes, and you kind of have this moment.
Head tip. You got the head
Yep.
tip.
And then the sir and the ma'am, which I think I have personally taken on as a little bit more sarcastic, sir, ma'am. Like when I had a boss that was really, really irritating me, I think that sometimes I would say, ma'am, kind of in a not condescending way, but kind of like, all right, I respect your position, but not really you in this moment. So let's try to figure this out quickly.
So how long were you in Houston?
So
Did you migrate south for the winter? Like what?
Well, okay. So this iteration of me, the origin story is that I started in Antarctica like every penguin, but I moved to Texas at some point because, the prodigal waddler, there's always that one penguin that just waddles off towards the mountains and never comes back. And they say he died, but this one made it to Texas, so we'll just leave it at that, right?
He went out for a pack of cigarettes and never came home or
See,
something.
Just have to say, Josh Davidson, look, the cool people are on my channel and not, out doing other stuff. So
The greatest beard in YouTube right there. Josh.
that's true.
Nice.
We have to let him off the hook for having a great beard.
I wish I could grow one, but I have a beak.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I think you pull it off. Become a Calvinist penguin. That'd be cool.
In
There you
in Seattle where I grew up, before I
don't
moved, if I would open the door at a gas station or whatever for a woman, and they will hiss at you for doing that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and you have just good intention. Just I would have probably opened it for a man or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, excuse me," and it's just like, wow,
Mhm.
culture is different in different places.
Yeah. They get offended that you're being kind. That's weird.
Yeah,
Even down here, it's changed in the last 10, 15 years. So, 20 years.
Oh, Josh.
Yeah, I used to
No,
live in
Josh.
Houston. I lived in Houston for many years, and then moved up to Dallas. And I went to Texas about 2 months ago. And I'd always said if I ever had an opportunity, I'd move back. But when we landed, it was 107 degrees that day, and I was like, maybe
Nope.
maybe it's a little more fond in my memories than it actually deserves. But I love
Yep.
my home state.
Yeah.
Well, I'm headed down that direction in May because one of my nieces is graduating, so we're gonna go spend a week in Houston, and hopefully I'll get to hook up and say hi to Punk, and then I'm going after that to go spend some time over in Birmingham. And
Oh no!
go-
What happened?
I have a niece that lives there, so I'm gonna go hang out in Birmingham for a few days and go through we went through the Deep South about a year ago or so. I have never yes sir'd and yes ma'am'd as much ever in my life as I did during our trip down to the Deep South.
hmm
That was kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Like I said, I avoided the deep south of the Bible Belt, the Baptist Belt,
Mhm.
and a few more sirs, ma'ams, and handshakes. And I got enough of it.
I love it. Everything's deep fried and coated in batter or sugar. It's
I mean,
That's not-
you go to the fair and there's like deep fried, butter, Oreos,
Ugh.
everything.
that just
I've never
sounds
had a deep
terrible.
fried stick of butter, but I think I did try an Oreo the last time we were there.
See,
wait, are
No.
you serious? They really make that?
Yeah, they'll deep fry a stick of butter and they'll deep fry Oreos and Twinkies,
Yeah.
Snickers. They'll deep fry Snickers.
What do you do with it? Eat it?
Yeah, you're supposed
yeah.
to eat it.
Eat
Yeah.
a stick of butter that's been deep fried?
Yeah.
Well, I'm
That
on
is
the carnivore
absolutely
diet.
atrocious.
I started the carnivore diet recently, and there are carnivores that will just, when they get a sweet tooth, they'll just go grab a stick of butter and take 2 or 3 bites, and then they treat it like ice cream.
There's a few
That's actually
YouTubers
kinda
out there.
awesome in one way, but I'm just saying that's weird.
It is very weird. It is
Yeah,
very weird.
There's a few YouTubers out there that use it as their shtick, their butter shtick.
ugh. Oh, that was bad.
See, when I started,
you have children with dad jokes like that. I think you should have probably 7 or 8.
all right, I'll tell Sugar Waddle that. I don't have kids currently.
Okay,
Although there-
see that you're getting good practice in because that was a high level dad joke right there.
Well,
so I'm tipping my hat to you.
My dad was really he
Uh.
had the junior high puns down. perfect, and so I am a product of my environment. Nature versus nurture. We could talk about that later. Yeah. But
Bravo.
did I freeze? Okay.
Oh,
But I do need to waddle off
Ugh.
because, well, as you can see, I'm a penguin puppet sheriff, and I like being part of the entertainment sphere and being part of all this. You know, sometimes I hang out with miscreant puppets that need a little order. Sometimes here's the thing, and I take this just, you know, not obviously this channel I have a lot of agreement and a lot of appreciation for Amber, but I think Warren, you can understand this too, and anybody who's been on this sphere for long enough, that when you have your own channel, you have your own settings and rules and sort of things, but going on anybody else's channel, it's their house, it's their set of rules, their degeneracy or whatnot, right?
That's
And
right.
so I have a lot of friends in a lot of places, and you know, sometimes I don't always advertise where I go because I know there's some people that may not appreciate that, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to judge them for being who they are and their backgrounds and whatnot, because sometimes you find some really genuine people in places you wouldn't expect. And well, being on their YouTube channel is different than like hanging out with them in, you know, it's like going to high school or going to school or going to class. Then you can go to your own home and do your own thing at the end of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Since I'm making my debut here, and you guys might have figured out that when I'm the avatar, I'm kind of that guy over there, and when I'm in puppet form, I'm looking at myself. So the tone changes. But Amber, I want to really appreciate you and thank you for inviting me on here. It's been a lot of fun. And Warren, it's been nice to actually meet you because I've seen you with that other puppet a couple times and things, and been adjacent on channels. But and Jamie too. It's also nice to meet you. But I have wayward miscreant puppets that I should not really talk about the things I get into.
Yeah, have fun, and it was nice meeting you, and good luck out there with all your endeavors.
All right. Thanks for coming, Punk. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you at a future time. And we have some things to fly and some things to blow up. So we will get up to shenanigans later. So
We'll be around. Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.
See you,
Oh,
buddy.
that was fun.
Amber,
I
what,
adore him. Yo.
tell me why you think Warren's open theism isn't right.
Actually, I am on the fence.
Gator, you Seventh-day Adventist. Look at you. dividing the body. Look at you.
No, I'm just curious. No, I think you could be an Adventist and open theist, although I don't. That's not traditionally what people are. But I think the idea of what it is, because of some of the lead proponents of it and some of the crazy places they go, it's often misunderstood. Because like when someone asks me, well, do you think God knows the future? And I say, well, yeah, but then nobody actually really knows how that works for sure. People just act like it has to be a certain way. And it's like, all I know is I don't think I agree with you that the future in the sense isn't closed. And to me, if it's not closed, then it seems like it's open in some way. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think God knows everything that's knowable. And I you know, I'm going to hash that out, that God knows the future perfectly and exhaustively, but not in a deterministic sense or a sense in which he's impotent to do anything about it, because in a single timeless instant he exhausted all potency. You know, I'm going to push back on some of those pagan metaphysics and Neoplatonist kind of views, but somebody says, do you believe God knows the future? Yeah. Do you think he knows it exhaustively? I do. But by exhaustively, again, they're assuming that it has to be settled and it can't include any possibilities. And I think they're limiting God and denying his freedom. And there's modal collapses that occur where if everything is eternally settled, then you and I are necessary beings and co-eternal, and that entails sin as a attribute of God that is manifested in creation rather than contrary to God and something that he redeems. So, you know, I have a very strong biblical basis for affirming dynamic omniscience. And it begins not with me going, well, I'm free, so, you know, how dare God decree me? Like, God wants me to be swallowed up by a fish and dropped off at Nineveh, that's going to happen. He can do it. And God could have created a deterministic universe. I just don't think that Scripture shows that. And I think that he's free and holy. And when he says, like in Jeremiah, was it Jeremiah 19:5? I think it was. He said, "I did not decree, nor command, nor think to do so." It didn't mean he didn't know it was a possibility, because previously he warned them it could occur. So we see that God's knowledge of the future is of actuals, certainties, and possibilities. But the problem is this is a nuanced view, and people don't like that. They want to come in and just go, God knows, future settled, you bad, don't make me think. And, so.
Well, a popular conversation, and I'm curious, Amber, what you make of this, or if you think this is something that's heretical or whatever, in a soft sense. But like, I'm reading in some Adventist scholarship the discussion about conditional prophecy, like, and how that relates to some of the Old Testament prophecies, and depending on your view of like how literal to take some of the prophecies that are commonly seen to be not fulfilled, that people will appeal to as like a literal temple with sacrifices coming back, which I tend to not think is true, but yet, and how you untangle how to actually parse apart what would be, because some prophecies are clearly not conditional, but then some clearly are, and it's not super clear on how to distinguish that as like in a principled way or whatever.
I had heard someone on some channel a while back say something like that there was a study conducted, and like I think it was 90-something% of the prophecies in Scripture. Again, I don't know what they were basing this off of, but like 90-something% of those were conditional, and there was somewhere between like 3 to 7 where there wasn't a condition explicit or implied from the context. So I think generally, God is warning people. He's directing them. He's saying, don't do this or else, but if you do this, I will. And so, you see this relational aspect of God all throughout Scripture, and that's offensive to a lot of people that have that more Platonic view of God, because they don't want that. And I can psychoanalyze on why I think some people operate that way, but I think culturally it's just become kind of like, well, this is just what God is. And they take that to the Bible and don't really ever question it.
I think that it's hard for people to get their mind around the idea that God is the prophecy can work in a conditional way. Some people's need to have a definition of sovereignty that doesn't allow for a view that God can pivot and adjust and respond really limits how you understand the way that prophecy works, because it really, like, when you look through when I went through prophets class last semester, it was really fun because it was a very small class and all of us were in Hebrew. So we got to not only just do the prophets class, we got to dig into the Hebrew and the Aramaic as well when we were at it. And the theme that runs through all of the prophets, the major, minor prophets, the books of the prophet, the last half of the Old Testament, is the Hebrew word shuv, which can be, depending on which form, can be either turn or return. And if it's, most of the time it's turn, which is kind of, this is getting into the technical nerdy stuff that most people, if you know Hebrew, won't quite get, but that is it's call form most of the time, and that is perfect and imperfect, which is complete and incomplete action. But when you flip it into I think it's the nifal. I'm not very good with the nifal. I'm still learning on some of those more fringe forms of Hebrew verbs. But when it becomes return, and so but there's a pivoting action to that, and so God is in all of those prophecies, and especially in the later prophets, using this turn and return language. So it's all based on if you do this, and it may not be. In English, it doesn't always translate as well, but almost all of them have this conditional language with the shuv and the turn and return, because it's clearer, I think, if you following the rhythm and the thought of the Hebrew, that God will stop it on a dime if we just respond at all. And so it's not the way that the Hebrew works itself doesn't really support a static God that sets it in motion and won't change his mind. That's just not something that I don't think the Hebrew doesn't support that. I don't think.
Well, I mean,
But I'm not
I've never found a Hebrew scholar that says that the Old Testament God knows anything about Platonic metaphysics. I've never found anyone that would make that argument. And now the New Testament, Platonism was already on the scene, and it was already starting to corrupt Judaism to some degree. But you see the New Testament authors using the gods of the pagans and appealing to them to correct them, not to correct the Old Testament. But yet classical theists will often make note that they're pointing to these pagan gods and saying it's almost a validation rather than a correction. And that's problematic, because you can point to the unknown God and go, let me introduce you. But that doesn't mean he's the God of Neoplatonism and he's unchanging, unrelated, and has no before and after. It's silly to make that claim, but I've seen it happen pretty regularly.
So Roddy's got a good point here too. What I don't understand is why Calvinists can't understand that God made a world that operates on logic and their views are logically paradoxical. So I would agree. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance. And one of the things that I have really appreciated as I've been going through, because I have some pretty amazing professors that have been from very different backgrounds. Actually, my theology professor last semester was Pentecostal, and the guy that I have for Old Testament biblical theology this semester is the guy who trained Tim Mackey and Carmen Imes and Andrew Teeter, Dr. Andrew Teeter. And so that's the guy that I have for my theology professor now.
I like Tim. Tim's an insightful and challenging, thought-provoking individual. I like Tim. I'd like to get him on Idol Killer one day. Anybody out there watching, Tim, to come on Idol Killer, we need to talk. I do home church with my kids pretty regularly, where we'll go through the Bible Project, and I'll use that for jumping off points. I really like Tim Mackey.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times, but I don't know. But this guy has really kind of beaten it into our heads, and all of the professors in different ways, about letting the text speak and listening to the way that the authors tell the story, and starting from what is the author trying to say, and stripping off. I got big trouble actually at Hebrew class the other day. I got in really big trouble because I asked a question, and it was a legitimate question, but she's a Deuteronomy scholar, and she's like the Torah queen, and I love her to death, but she just really ripped into me, because she's like, you never develop your theology on grammar alone. And I was like, "Oop, sorry. Yeah, my mistake. That's my bad." Because the way I asked the question wasn't the best way to ask it in the first place. So it was a good reminder. They're really good about keeping us in the balanced way to go back to look at what the Bible itself says, and then later you can go back and look at all that all the other stuff. And I have one of my best friends on campus. She's a Lutheran. She grew up fundamental Baptist, but she's now a Lutheran, which was an interesting story. But we were talking about sola scriptura one day, and I was like, explain to me the Lutheran view of sola scriptura. How does that work in your part of Lutheranism and whatever? And so we were kind of talking about that, and she laughed and she said, that their preacher one day said something that she started laughing at, and she's said it ever since. And so she said, well, we basically at our church, we look at sola scriptura kind of like, you've got the Bible, and then you've got all the Bible fan fiction. And I'm like, that's brilliant. She's like commentaries, like all of it. It's all Bible fan fiction. And I think that, to me, I was just like laughing so hard, because that is a lot of the way that we're being trained at school, is to stay in the text first and look at the text, look at the story, step into. So it's been a lot of fun getting into all of that. But I think this guy that I have for theology, his name is Dr. Ray Lubeck. And I heard him say one time, show me where a New Testament scholar is wrong, and I'll show you where he doesn't understand the Old Testament. And that has stuck with me, and why I give Nick Quint such a hard time all the time, and I go back and forth with him, is that lack of people understanding the way that we should read the Old Testament and how the Old Testament works. Really adds to a lot of confusion, because you don't read the Bible through whoever your favorite Reformation guy is, or who your favorite pastor of the week is, or through any of these other. The Bible should inform our theology instead of the theology informing the Bible. And so that we get really pounded with that at school. Every assignment, every class, everything. That's
why I quote unquote fell in love with you, in the sense of appreciating you online because of that sort of thing. Because I totally agree with that. So much. It's a weird sort of. I was going to ask you about that. I was going to say, what's worse, unhitching yourself entirely from the Old Testament as a Christian, or not pretending like you're not unhitched and cherry picking from the Old Testament, like some people might do that to, like, I'm going to say, I'm all New Covenant, but I'm going to like condemn people like it's the Old Testament, and and so they'll cherry pick but be totally inconsistent. Which is worse?
Well, I think about that. I'm going to let Warren answer that question, and I'm going to think about that for a second, because those are both high-level heresies right there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't unhitch yourself from the Old Testament. The Old Testament shows God in. I mean, in the New Testament is God in Christ, right? We get to see Him personified. We get to see Him interact and teach and be clear. But that's the same very deity we see in the Old Testament. And so, sometimes you'll get into situations where you've got like ancient Near Eastern war rhetoric, and people will take that in a literal sense, or they don't understand that God is literally fighting enemies that are trying to impede Him incarnating so as to die and save us. They don't understand, like they saw episode, 3, A New Hope or whatever it is, but they haven't seen episode 4 and 5 yet, or 5 and 6, whatever it is. I stopped caring about Star Wars once Disney bought them, but. But my point is like the Old Testament is the one that's setting the framework, the foundation. It's pointing to everything, and it's what's validating Christ, and then Christ in turn is the fulfillment of that. So I don't think you can unhitch, and I don't think you can even properly understand who Christ is without understanding what He was accomplishing in the Old Testament. But to pretend like you've got this respect for the Old Testament while you really don't, and then you're weaponizing it. I think unhitching from the Old Testament would be more of, maybe, I hate to use the term, but maybe more of a liberal approach, where they're trying to save the character of God because they don't understand the character of God in the Old Testament. So they're trying to save God from Himself. And I think that's very dangerous. But then to turn around and do the same thing in short, except when you can weaponize it and bash someone over the head, seems to be, the other extreme. So I would say they're both pitfalls. And I think what you're recognizing is a pendulum. It's wrong over here and it's wrong over there. But, I'm an Old Testament, New Testament guy. I don't see how you can be a Christian and not affirm and trust and seek God and appreciate what He did in both.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much all of that, but I would add just a little nuance to say that I think that while they're both terrible, I think that misusing the Old Testament is even worse than being ignorant of it, because that involves, on some level, just dishonesty and misrepresenting Scripture. And I think
it's that intentionality.
You're intentionally misrepresenting, and that is something that is dangerous. And the people that you're influencing and poisoning the well with the misuse of the Old Testament can really damage people's theology and their relationship with God in a really bad way, and it can really create a lot of bad. So I would rather somebody just be completely ignorant of it at all, because I think the gospel story itself and the story of the life and the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus is enough by itself to bring people to relationship with God. You don't, but if you are bringing in and misusing the Old Testament to create situations that can alienate or keep people from God altogether, I think that is worse.
Yeah, there's this gatekeeping. I think this
Mhm.
element of we're going to
Mhm.
weaponize, we're going to prevent you from accessing God. I think that's very dangerous. I think
Mhm.
you're right.
Okay, you guys, I don't mean to take over your show, but I want to hear from you guys, from your guys' wisdom. So I'll give you something I struggle with
Okay.
people I have disagreements with, and I get kind of disgusted by it and probably embarrass myself. But like, I have a friend that has demonstrated what I see as the love of Christ in a profound way
Mhm.
regarding interactions I have, right? But they affirm and they want to influence the Christian world to accept homosexual openly. It just is fine, okay? And it seems like the Bible's just not. That's just not an option if you, even if you have a low view of the law or whatever, which I do not, of course. But I do. I'm also disgusted with some of the hypocrisy within the greater Christian body of how they've tended to think about homosexuality, and so it's kind of a mess. So, but how would you go with this? It seems to me if you're going to have like the high grace view and argue about theology, about you just say the words and you're going to go to heaven, and but then not like be consistent and like be accepting of homosexuals and have that message with it just seems like this really bugs me. So what would you say, how to approach that? Like people on the one hand, when they're defending a theology, but they're going to say and then condemn people, but it's just belief and you can't lose it. And it doesn't matter what you do, but then they reject people. And it's like, so I'm stuck in the middle here where I'm going, these people that I don't agree with their interpretation, but they're like super caring people that actually do stuff for people, but I cannot affirm it from scripture. And then I have these other people who I disagree with theologically and see that inconsistency. And I think, how do I even respond or interact with this?
I think that's where having places of kindness and the places that we agree, and having relationships in that positivity in those places that we agree first is where we start. And it's not kind to let someone stay in error, but that needs to be done carefully and lovingly and in a way, because if like when I've disagreed with Warren, I have always tried to
Have
come
you
to
ever
terms.
disagreed with me?
Oh, never, ever. But I've always tried, when I have disagreed with Warren, I've always tried to be like, hey, by the way, and do that nicely, and never just say, hey, dude, you were wrong. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because when I try to do it nicely, well, Jamie, you've been the recipient of the only response video I will probably ever do. So you've seen how that goes.
Honored. That really that meant a lot to me. I really appreciate that. Just wanted to know.
That was the best thing. I had so much fun doing that. But but when I come, but if I come at Warren and be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, how could you say something so stupid? Warren is going to be more on the defensive and not actually hear what I'm trying to say. But but I have to try. There's processes that are in scripture for how we're supposed to approach people, but
you invite them on your show and you tell them that they were being stupid.
That's right. Sorry, I would never actually say that to you, Warren.
No, I'm kidding.
That's why I can use you as an example of that.
That's why we sent you the invite tonight, Warren. This is an intervention.
That's
we're
right.
all your friends here. We all care about you, but you're saying stupid things.
That's right. No, because you are going to get a lot further with a handshake than a closed fist, I think. But it's also not kind and loving to leave someone in error when they are. But that is going to be a long process that takes time, because it takes time to change your mind. It takes time to accept that you may be wrong. It takes time. Paradigms do not shift quickly. Those take a long time. And so if you are coming out of one belief system and trying to find another one, and all of a sudden, if I'm wrong about one thing, what if everything else that I'm wrong about? And what if my faith is a house of cards that's going to come crashing to the ground? If I'm wrong about one thing, I'm wrong about everything. And then everything I believed is a lie. And that is terrifying. And I think that keeps people stuck in things that they may not want to admit that they know that we are wrong about. But that takes kindness, that takes lovingness, that takes patience, that takes hours and hours and hours of conversations and understanding where they're coming from. Why do you think that way? And figuring out how to ask the right questions to get them to start questioning themselves. Because if I just tell you you're wrong, change it, I'm going to be like, no, who are you? But if I start asking you questions that make you think, and maybe make you start to be like, I might want to reconsider that. Or maybe then I can start asking you, because you've been so kind and loving and gentle to me, I can start asking you questions about, well, why are you disagreeing with me? Or why are you? And then we can have more conversations and dialogues and lead people into a more place, into a better place in their positions, because we have, you have to love them there. You can't, cage stage debate fighting is not going to change really anybody's mind. It's the loving time and relationship that really is going to bring about the change in people's beliefs, I think.
Well, you have the affirming community that see that group of people need love.
Mhm.
And I think that their instinct is correct. They see a community that is often reviled and written off, despised and treated poorly. It's not an indictment on all Christianity. There have been a lot of Christians that have gone there in love and witnessed to them and said, "I still disagree with you," and they've been able to love them. In my early 20s, I was a conservative, true love waits Christian, and I had a roommate that was a lesbian and a roommate that was practicing homosexual. And they knew that I did not endorse their lifestyle, that I disagreed with the way that they were living, but they knew that I cared about them as a person. And so I never felt like I had to compromise and say, "Oh, I'm to support you, I have to support all you're doing," because there would be decisions that I would make that they would care about me, and they'd come in and go, "That's a horrible decision, Warren. Don't get a job there. Don't go do that. These are horrible people that you shouldn't be associating with." And I never saw them as like not loving me. I go, "Oh, that's actually good counsel. Thank you." And when they would have life crises, they would come to me and they would seek, direction and all of that. But I think that the affirming community, where they come in and go, "No, you don't have to change. You don't have to repent. You can continue in this, and there's nothing wrong. You don't even have to really want to change." I think perhaps they're motivated by this recognition that they need love, but I think that they're suppressing truth and doing that community a disservice along the way. Now, I can love that community. I can care about them, but that doesn't mean I have to endorse everything that they're doing or believing. Now, when I was a Calvinist, one of the jobs I got out of high school was working for Blockbuster Video. That's how old I am.
I remember Blockbuster.
I was
Awesome.
an assistant to the manager. So I was an assistant manager. I was the Dwight Schrute of the Blockbuster, and my manager Steve was out and practicing homosexual, and we would have conversations about it. And I was a Calvinist, and Steve would always tell me that he was born this way, that he'd always had these attractions and stuff. And we would talk, and he would tell me about, how he'd been abused when he was little and all of that. But ultimately, because I was a Calvinist, I remember arguing, well, maybe because total depravity, maybe you were born this way. You're a sinner. You're just going to continue to sin. Your sin's going to get worse. So as a Calvinist, I would come in and I would actually say, no, you're right. You were born that way and you need to repent. And he goes, but Warren, you're telling a man who was born in a wheelchair without legs that I need to stand up. And I was like, well, yeah, you need God to do that for you, and I can't do that. And I remember wrestling with that, but trying to be consistent in my Calvinism with him. But you know, where I am now is I've come to realize the propensity for abuse that has led to some of these lifestyles and choices. And so I've started to understand that in that community, there's a lot more victimhood and abuse, and they don't understand how to feel and receive like healthy love. And so this is a way that they're able to feel something approximating love. And so the idea that love is love, I think, is ignoring the idea that it's a response that's been developed often by abuse. And so instead of coming in and attacking them, I started to actually have a lot more compassion and a lot more sympathy, and to realize that, there but for the grace of God go I. There is things in our environment that we can suffer that will dictate the way we respond. And I'm speaking in generalities. I'm sure somebody in the chat, and I'm going to use a joke here, will flame that comment and say, well, that's not me. Okay, well, that's fine. But my point is I think we need to.
Them, right?
What's that?
If you're not talking about them, then it wasn't directed at them.
If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But in that community, I mean, I've known a lot of people. Like, I worked in the film industry before I came out to Georgia, and I used to make movies and music videos and all that. And so in that community, there's just in that industry, there's a lot of people from that community there. And so you can't insulate yourself as a Christian and go, they're bad, I'm not going to associate with them. You have to get to know these people. They're your coworkers and they're human beings. And so it forced me to actually start to see them as people. And I can understand why we might not want to associate with strong sins in the midst of a sin, but that doesn't mean that we can't love people that are caught up in a sin and try and show them compassion, try and be there for them, try and point them to Christ in a better way. And it's going to be hard. It's sin is an addiction and a sickness. And in that community, it manifests in a certain way. But, in the IFB, you've got an obese pastor up there, or, in the SBC, you've got the secret drunk, or you've got the people that are addicted to pornography and all of these other things. And so, I think we need to understand that it is a more obvious sin. And I do see it as a sin that leads to death. But that doesn't mean that we can't have compassion and love them and speak truth, in the process of that. So, thanks, Farking. But I hope that answered your question, Jamie. I hope that answers your question. I mean, I see a lot of people that I care about that are very much out there and affirming. And I think they're in many ways motivated by the right recognition that community needs love and affirmation. But to say that it's not sinful is to say, well, heterosexual behavior is sinful. Like adultery, fornication, when you're heterosexual, that's sinful, but same sex is not. And it really seems to be creating whole categories where behavior is, you get a pass just because you're in that community. And I think that's problematic. I'm going to call out the adulterer. I'm going to call out the liar, the thief. I'm going to call out all these things, not because I'm not free of sin myself, but because we're supposed to sharpen each other and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. That's hurting you, hurting others. Let's be better. But you got to say it in love,
Yeah, I think that's important. I think where we get in trouble is some people speak the truth and some people speak love, but you have to have both. You have to speak the truth in love, because you can't. If you just speak truth, it's hard to take. If you just speak love, you're not doing people any favors, because you're not really loving them, leaving them where they are. So it takes both together, the truth in love with love, that really brings change.
Yep. So what other hot button issue are you trying to get us in trouble with, Jamie?
Well, I got one more. I mean, no.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Do you think the idea of repentance? So I've thought about something like, because I think about sin and the way different Christian groups think of sin and think about sin and like kind of jumping off that conversation of what you're just saying, which by the way, I agreed with everything you guys said. I think that's exactly right. I would just say, some people go around talking about, always reminding, for me, for instance, they'll remind me that I sin every day. And it's like, I'm pretty aware of that actually. And so I wonder, I think there's this balance between understanding you're not sinless, right? But at the same time, like, aren't as Christians, we supposed to like encourage each other to not sin? And for people who take that seriously, it seems like Protestantism and evangelicalism have so wanted to distance themselves historically from practices in like the Catholic Church and whatnot, that like there's no sense of confession. And I've often wondered if it would be good to develop relationships with people where you openly admit sins or whatever to like a close friend, to encourage each other to grow towards the image of Christ in a way that's not using the sins against people, but actually wanting to help. Because if we're Christians, we believe that sin is something we don't want, and that's part of turning to Christ, right? Because we agree with God. And so it just seems like sometimes it just gets kind of lost. And I just wonder what you guys think of. Is that you think that would end up being unhealthy in the sort of environment or culture, or what do you make of that sort of idea? Or should it be a private thing only?
I think that for like publicly confessing sin, I was looking at the chat there for a second and I lost the thread. So are you talking about like public confessions of sin, or just in the local church, or in like what's your
I would
context?
say the context of someone who you're comfortable with talking in privately, that's encouraging as a brother or sister in Christ, so you have someone to be like, kind of like an accountability thing because you desire to grow. Or do you think that sort of idea wouldn't be helpful at all?
You have that old saying, confession is good for the soul, and it's not just for accountability. If I came to you and I said, Jamie, I need to talk to you, and I confess a particular sin. The point of confession begins with recognizing that it is wrong. That's where the confession begins. Is coming to the end of yourself and recognizing this is something that is wrong, and I need to be delivered from it, or I need to escape it, or I need to stop that behavior, whatever you want to phrase it. So it's recognizing that it's a wrong thing. And so that is not necessarily like you're coming in and you're going, God, forgive me. And I'm needing this like transactional thing, like with confession. It's more of a recognition that there's a sickness in my behavior, my thinking, my habits, my lifestyle that is doing me and others harm. And it's recognizing that. And so that's the first thing, is it's like, they say, recognizing you have a problem. And then it goes from there into desiring repentance, a change of mind leading to a change of behavior, where you say, this is a bad thing. I don't want to think this way or do these things. And then if you can go to a close friend or elder in the faith, then you have a spiritual mentor and a guide and accountability partner that can say, hey, here are things that you can do not to put yourself in that situation. Here are things that you can do to create, healthy alternatives, or, meditate on this, pray on this. And you get that accountability partner there. But I think ultimately you want to go through that process. And I don't think the Protestant world typically sees confession as that whole process. When they think of confession, they tend to think generally of a Roman Catholic going into a priest and saying, I blew it. And the priest says, well, say 7 Hail Marys and you get into heaven, and you're going to go and continue doing that.
Okay.
I think that's the way most Protestants view it. But I don't even think most Catholic, at least most priests, I don't think would hold to that kind of view.
We got Roddy. We have Warren. You are about to get a big honor here. Roddy is joining us. So
I'm glad I didn't log out. I was about to log out.
this is a big deal. Roddy doesn't make public appearances usually. He avoids them like the plague. So the fact
That's
that
right.
in,
Y'all lucky.
so I would just say really
What
quickly,
kind of accent
Jamie,
is that, Roddy? Are you on a Wild West program? Do you have
Man,
John
I'm so
Lee?
honored to finally get to hear your
Is Sam
voice.
Elliott there with you? What kind of mustache do you have, Roddy?
I am cleanly shaven. Thank you very much.
Okay, but how? All right, what color are your boots? That's what I want to know. You've got a good
love it.
accent, Roddy. I like
I
that.
love
I'm not
it.
picking on you.
I
like
know it's 100% North Carolina.
That's right.
brother, I like that, man. That's I don't know what kind of face you got, but I'm thinking you're riding, right beside Sam Elliott out on the range, and you guys are going to go round up some banditos. That's what it sounds like.
I can see that.
I've got a face
no.
for radio.
Yeah, you and me both. man. You
Oh,
and me both.
Roddy is amazing. Let me tell you, he's a good guy. So just really quickly, Jamie, I wanted to just throw in really there. I think that as far as confession and confessing to each other, that Genesis 1, and we were created for connection. And in Genesis 3, when we lost that connection, we lost the thing that comes from being seen, that vulnerability of being fully seen and fully known. And that's important. And that break there and that loss of that open vulnerability allows us to hide things. And that is the poisoning of the well in our souls that continues to be barriers in our relationships to God and to each other. And so it is important for people to be seen, our good sides and our bad sides. We need to be as seen as we can. And in talking with each other about those things we don't want to talk about, it helps us be more honest with God sometimes, as well as in our relationships with him. And so that it is important to feel seen and in a relationship with God and with each other. So that's what I would say. So Roddy,
Excellent.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm honored, man. This is even bigger honor than Warren coming on my show. Having Roddy come here. That's
Oh, geez.
Oh, I love
He's
you, man.
He's
Come
never
on.
been on mine. I don't know. I'm insulted now.
She's laying it on thick.
Like that North Carolina accent.
Well,
I love you, Roddy. I got to give you a hard time, brother.
yeah, that's fine. I don't care.
Roddy's the man. All right, Roddy. So lay some wisdom on us, man. You're like the wisest dude I know.
Well, I wanted to go back to what Warren was saying earlier about the homosexual situation.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what he said, and there is something that I think a lot of church people don't understand as far as that's concerned. I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but not everybody, I would say probably most homosexuals are that way because of some trauma that happened to them when they were children. And they didn't particularly just choose homosexuality to be their particular worst sin. I mean, it's like an alcoholic becomes an alcoholic because he drinks. And I think a lot of times we in the church view that as saying, oh, well, they just got up one day and decided they wanted to be a homosexual for whatever reason. And a lot of people are bent that way because their brain was warped when they were children in some way. And that we need to be cognizant of that when we're trying to help them see that they do not have to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a psychiatrist who was talking about some study, and he's a conservative Adventist Christian. And he actually, I think he doesn't believe in penal substitution, so he's kind of uncommon. But he was talking about because he's a psychiatrist too, to help people live better lives or whatever, kind of like Jordan Peterson. But he was saying it's scientifically known at this point that if certain things happen at a certain point in the child's development in a certain sort of way, it literally changes their physiology in a real sense. And that the issue here for me is you can almost make any issue that someone in their sin is a victim in some sort of way. And I struggle with that sort of idea. Sorry to interrupt you, Roddy. Keep going.
No, you're fine, Jamie. I mean, it's just what bothers me about that is when you have people like John MacArthur that say things like psychology is witchcraft or whatever it was he said. I don't remember exactly what it was he said, but
that was gross.
I mean, it's, you know, that I think that church people just need to, I think they could reach the homosexual community better if they could understand the nuance in the situation. Are there homosexuals out there that enjoy their lifestyle and want to remain that way? Sure. But there are people out there, I think I've heard, what's his name? Well, oh gosh, what is that guy's name? Beckett Cook, is that his name? Is it Beckett Cook or I can't remember, but he was a homosexual, and he something that happened, something that got in his brain when he was 5 or 6 years old. And he didn't particularly want to be that way, but he thought he had to be that way because he was listening to the psychological community that says, well, you're just wired that way at birth and there's nothing that you can do about it. And I think a lot of times because we don't recognize that it's not as simple as saying, oh, you just chose to do this, that we could reach more people and we could show more people. And I'm like Jamie said, I do not believe, like Warren said, I do not believe that affirming it is the right thing. We cannot, I wouldn't affirm an alcoholic. I wouldn't say you are okay to remain an alcoholic the rest of your life and kill yourself and destroy your health and your liver because God loves you. And at the end of the day, it's okay because you said a prayer and, you know, whatever. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think that I have this guy who's my theology mentor at school, and he's been working with me on and really encouraged me on like doing this and starting my blog and doing some writing, which I'm behind on that and I need to get that caught up. But we're also working towards, I'm going to be working on writing a book on outliers in the image of God and what does being an outlier in the image of God actually mean. And it's going to be high level technical stuff, but there's this idea that talks about redeeming. He released a book, Redeeming Personhood in a Consumerist Culture, and talked about how we have lost in all of our development or technological advances or just the way that the world has developed, lost this idea of personhood and the wholeness of personhood and what the image of God, being the image of God, means, because we never, even after the fall, we don't see that we lose that image. It it's given to Adam, but it says in, I think, Genesis 4 or 6, I don't remember off the top of my head, but that the image went from Adam to Seth. It didn't say that it was broken and Seth inherited a broken image of God or didn't inherit that image, that the whole image that Adam was given is also passed down to Seth. And while we don't even really understand fully what the image of God is, because it's not clear in Scripture, it doesn't lay out this granular, technical, everything that is encompassed in that phrase there. I think there's room to move on purpose. But anything that you can point to, the sin isn't really relevant itself. It is restoring people back to where they can reclaim that feeling of being a part of the image of God, because there's some of those situations, and in a lot of, especially people who've gone through profound things and find themselves in really deep situations, and deep into things like alcoholism and any other thing you can name, don't feel like they fully are deserving or can be a participant in the image of God as an image holder of God, and feel second class. And I have a half developed theory that, and Warren, I would really love to hear your thoughts on this, that there are the need to have a sovereign God who, to those of us who don't hold to that definition of sovereignty, looks like an OCD control freak, are people who come from either themselves or being raised by or around profoundly damaged people. And so that chaos that they grow up with creates the need to have an external view of God being so rigid and structured and inflexibly in control, because they have that inner chaos that God can't not be anything but so structured, because that would be reflecting the chaos that they grew up in, and they wouldn't know, like, it, you know what I'm saying? It's still kind of swirling in my head, this idea, but
Yeah, there's a fear that many in that
mhm,
deterministic community have, and you'll hear them. They're like, well, if God could change his mind, then we don't have any assurance we'll
mhm,
be saved. And it's like, well, by your own view right now, you don't know if God decreed you to hold a false view, and you're going to fall away like all these others. So you have no assurance anyway. But they like to deceive themselves into thinking that everything is fated. And it really, what it is, it's a fear of the holy and living God.
mhm,
And so they'll deny those aspects of God out of a fear. Not all of them. This, again, if it
It's
doesn't,
not
shoot
the right
fit,
kind of
wear it.
fear. That's the
What is it?
wrong. That's fearing God for the wrong reason. This is
Yeah.
what makes me so mad about that view of God in the cross. That is not what draws people to the cross. It's the demonstration of God coming down to suffer with humanity, not because he pre-chose people, but to draw people. It's so irritating. Sorry, Rowan, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, the problem is that there's this fear, and then also, either in addition to that or separate from it, there's also this driving motive where it's a refusal to take accountability for your sin. And like you'll see this, there's a Calvinist apologist out there that has had really majorly damaging influence on his children's life, right? I'm not going to name names,
mhm,
but he refuses to take ownership over that, and would rather blame the decree of God and say, well, maybe,
mhm,
my child was decreed to be unelect. Because if that individual says, my behavior as a parent was so abhorrent and drew them away from the Lord to this degree, then that would break their heart, and they won't do that. So they would rather
mhm,
say God decreed all of this as a way of excusing their sin. So I think in some cases it comes down to unrepentance
mhm,
and refusing to recognize that they are a sinner, and yet the whole time they're going to be teaching total depravity, that they were created this way, and how dare you, if you don't affirm this, you're not affirming you're a sinner. But it's a way of that moving the cup, the cup and ball game you'll see like on the streets, and
yeah,
1980s movies, in New York, they're moving the cup and ball
yeah,
around, and it's like, but I think it's a twofold. It's this fear that God is holy and living and is free, and that they're accountable. And I think those are going to drive them away from accountability. I mean, they really want God to be responsible for all evil, and you'd rather follow an evil God than to say, forgive me, Lord, for I've sinned.
mhm.
And that's tragic.
I think there's a lot of things that all shake out of, with our lack of understanding of the Old Testament, that gets our view of the sovereignty of God wrong, affects so much, not just our soteriology, but it affects so much of our theology and so much of our ability to relate to God the way that he is portrayed. If we look at the narrative of the story the Bible is trying to tell, that doesn't, when you get the sovereignty of God wrong and misunderstand what sovereignty actually is, the whole trajectory of the Bible is going to be off, and therefore your view of a lot of things are going to be off. And so we have to, I think, go back and really dig in and have a lot of rethinking about what actually sovereignty should be, instead of the way that it's been, I think, misused and misdefined.
Yep.
But anyway, that was fun. So I think we've been, we're getting into Leighton Flowers territory and length on this, on this thing. I was really going to go for like 45 minutes, and it's for like 2 hours and 19 minutes now. So it's been a long one for my first live stream. So Warren, you've got to do my first live stream. So thank you very much for doing that. Jamie,
Absolutely.
I'm
Glad to
so
be
glad
here.
you came. And Roddy, I am honored, sir, that you actually decided to get on a live stream. So that you did it on mine is even cooler. So, and everybody that's still hanging out with us in the chat, thank you for sticking around for so long. I just had it's been such a great year that, I was just doing my birthday the other day. I thought, I just, to give myself something for my birthday, I want to just appreciate everyone who has been a part of this last year that has made it so amazing and so life-giving and so changed. It's been amazing. The stuff that's happened in the last year, and everybody here and everybody in the chat has had a part of that. And so I just wanted to be able to say thank you all so much. I love and appreciate all of you. And I am just grateful, and I am honored to have all of you in my lives. And so with that, I will say thank you all, and have a very blessed week and weekend. All right.
Adios.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Amber.
Yep.